Hi guys, welcome to Abuse Recovery Success. You might see a familiar face in studio with us today. Taylor Wood, welcome to Abuse Recovery Success.
Hi, thank you for having me again. I love being here.
Of course. Well, guys, we're in for a treat because even though Taylor's been a guest with me several times, we've talked a little bit about our life, our interactions, working together, business. Also, Taylor's interviewed me a few times and really pulled out some good quality info. I think you guys had a lot of fun having her question me. But today, Taylor's going to share a little bit more about her own personal journey. And I think in one episode we did together, she touched a little bit on having some kind of history with addiction, not herself, but in her family. And so really, without further ado, I want to give her the ability to use this platform to share a little bit about her history and her journey. We're going to be doing a 2-part episode because really Taylor's had quite the hard road, especially this past year. And I don't want to take away her chance to tell this part of the story, but you'll be in for 2 parts to this story. Taylor?
Well, thank you. I guess I kind of want to preface this with just saying that I don't want to speak ill of anybody. I think that's something that's been, worrying me about sharing a lot of my story on this podcast. Because although it is my story, it also is other people's. And I don't want to take away from that, but I genuinely feel like this will be good for me. And not only me, but for people who have, similar stories. Because I know that when I was going through a lot, I did feel alone, and I would hate for somebody else to feel that way. So I guess I start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I've seen you do this, but it's different when I'm sitting here on the couch. But
For sure.
I guess, I grew up in a family, that was LDS Mormon. So we were kind of always not like told not to talk about things, but just nobody talked about things and everything was kind of a secret. And I think that's a big part of why I wanted to do this too, just to tell the truth. And, so it was kind of hard growing up because I knew something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And I wasn't really supposed to ask. So I would say like around maybe 10 or 12, as I got a little older, I got more curious and tried to figure out, why is my mom acting weird, or why is she talking differently, or why is she angry right now, or why is she like really over the top loving right now? Like it was just kind of a lot of different sides, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And I am the older sibling, so my little sister, I didn't want her to be affected by all these different things going on that we didn't really understand. So I kind of started to get more curious and was kind of, looking things up. And at one point I looked through my parents' room and found empty bottles and things. So I kind of started to put the pieces together on my own. And this went on for many years. And just as I got older and older, I was trying to figure out what I can do to help the situation. And, I'm looking up on YouTube, like how to get your mom to stop drinking, or like watching Dr. Phil or something like that. And unfortunately, from probably like 10 or 12 to, how I am now, I was trying to get my mom to stop drinking. And I feel like it was especially hard because I felt kind of like I was the only one trying, or that didn't want things to be this way. My parents would fight, and my dad and my mom, they would be yelling, but nothing would change. And I remember one time in particular, like my mom was taken to a rehab, and she called us crying and, I can't do this. And my dad was like, okay, we'll pick you up right now. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't want her to be somewhere that she doesn't want to be, but isn't she supposed to be there? Like, how else is this going to get better? But we picked her up right away. And I look back and I think that like that was probably a form of enabling that we all kind of did. So it was really hard. And, of course there's, stories on end about little things that would happen like as children. But one thing that really sticks out to me is when my mom, she got like really, really drunk, And I had friends over, and my sister had friends over, and she was really drunk and depressed and, took some pills or something, trying to do something bad to herself. And me and my sister and all her friends had to like call 911 and call the ambulance. And it was just this chaotic, like, mess. And like, of course I was so scared, but I was also embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to not want to come over anymore, or not, think that it was a safe place to be because of all the craziness going on. So that was really hard. And, she went through that, but I don't think I saw any kind of change after that. Really the only time where I did see change was when she was really sick, and they told her in the hospital, if you drink again, you will die. And she did stop drinking for 2 years. And I don't say sober because I can't say for sure that there wasn't other things that were going on, but she stopped drinking for 2 years. And, we had part of our mom back, not her completely, but it felt like we had part of our mom back. And unfortunately, after 2 years, I started to notice things again, and, finally got it out of her that she started drinking again. And I was probably like 17 or 18 at the time. And I just remember thinking like, here we go all over again. But unfortunately, it was probably like 10 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
It just was full-fledged, like really, really bad. And at that point, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I tried everything before and we're back in this place. So what, like, in the world am I supposed to do? And I think that's something like, for people out there, like if you do have an alcoholic, like mom or dad or sister or brother or something, like sometimes there's not anything you can do. And I felt like that was where I was at in the moment. I was more, just to be honest with you, mad than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to help anymore. I was just like, I can't do this. Like I've tried so hard already. So that went on for probably another year or so. And then she ended up in the hospital again. And, at this point, she had no function left in her liver, and they were talking about, a will and all the things. And it was really scary. And there was a point where she wasn't awake. We thought, this is it. I was prepared for the worst to happen. And out of nowhere, she just woke up. And she was like completely fine, like nothing had happened. Like I know they call that something, but I can't quite think of the word. But when you're like near death but you come out of it and you're just completely fine. So for about a month, like she was fully my mom again, and we had a great time, and we shared things, and I learned things, and I had her there. And unfortunately, on May 3rd, she just passed away in her sleep. And we don't know for sure that was it, but you can kind of assume, if a month earlier you're like dying from liver failure, it probably just caught up to you in that moment. So that kind of leads us to today. But
before, we go down that journey regarding your loss, I want to talk a little bit more about just your story, because what I find interesting is that when you're sharing, so much of it is even just, about what you didn't do, what you could have done, and about the other people in the story. So I think, because there are listeners that are going to identify with being the person that loves an addict, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about, I guess, you mentioned you felt like you're the only one that wanted things to change, but you do have a sister. Mm-hmm. She was younger than you. Tell me a little bit more about that dynamic for you, having a younger sibling and you guys trying to deal with the chaos in your family life.
Yeah, well, I think that, a lot of it we went through together. Mm-hmm. But I do think, and I don't know if this, is because she's younger, she did have kind of a different relationship with my mom. Like, because I was older, I was the one who was trying, maybe that tough love or whatever. But my sister always just like, was kind of sometimes just okay with what it was, no matter. She would get super annoyed, trust me, and really frustrated, and she would get upset. But I feel like she was more kind of like forgiving, I guess, about it. And I wasn't. And I think that, the dynamic between us is just that, I'm more cautious, I'm more scared, I'm more not okay with it, and she just kind of wanted her mom, no matter what she was like in that moment. So,
but wouldn't you say that some of that too might be, if you dug in deep, I would think psychologically, the fact that you had to do a lot. Of course you would have more resentment.
Yeah.
If that's probably what you could really call it,
Yeah.
of like, hey, I need you to be a parent here so that I don't have to be.
Yeah, I guess that was probably something that I missed too. Like, I, took care of my sister. That's just, how it is. Like, when we weren't, like, my dad was gone, my mom's drunk, like, we needed to eat, or I had to teach myself how to do the laundry, I had to teach her how to do the laundry. She has type 1 diabetes, so I had to figure out all of that, like pick up her prescriptions, test her blood, and like, I have been like a mom since I was very young, and I felt like sometimes I didn't get much of that. Like, my mom was a great mom, don't get me wrong, but as you know, like, addiction can take over someone's life, and unfortunately most of my memories are like that. But I definitely would say that the dynamic was, me kind of wanting her to understand more of what's going on, but not wanting her to get the brunt of it. And I just kind of sheltered her from a lot of things and became the mom. So
yeah, I recognize that my older daughter had to do that for her brother at times, I guess what I'd like to hear a little bit more about is kind of in the time before, because you touched on like when you were 17, 18, she started drinking again. I think it was 18, 19, just if I really look at the years, because I knew you then. But in that period of time, maybe before, and you mentioned there might have been some substance, but that time before, what did it feel like? You seemed pretty happy then too, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely happier because, experienced this for years, and I'm sure people can probably relate to this. Like, even because I knew you when you were drinking too, like, I knew right away if you had been drinking, I just knew right away. And like, it was like that with my mom. So I, knew she wasn't drinking, but she by no means was like
her total self.
So whether that was just the effects of it or pills or something, I mean, my mom had a lot of health issues aside from the liver and alcohol issues, which so I just never knew what I was going to get still, but I was just kind of grateful that she wasn't drinking what was going to kill her. But it definitely, wasn't the same. And it's hard because, like, I do have memories from a young child, and I remember,
Yeah, you were telling me like snacks and stuff, or the picnic. Was it a picnic?
All sorts of things. My mom was
like
one
to
of
the pool or something.
Sorry. My mom was one of the most like thoughtful people. And she would always do things like that, like, pool parties and like cutting the sandwiches in like shapes and stuff and like, stuff like that. But it was just, it was a long time ago. So, but I know what it was like. And I tried to, keep that alive. And I didn't want my sister to never have like that again.
It's so crazy because even being someone who's an alcoholic and has been through it all, like, it's so crazy how it can just take so much of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't say that so that we can seem like we're blaming it on something or we just want an escape. Like, her mom was truly this person that made this shaped sandwiches and the fun things and the thoughtful, and you go down this spiral. It was funny, the other day I just even opened my car door and I was looking and it wasn't messy at all, and I'm like, And it wasn't at times my cars would get really dirty and active. You're just sloppier. It's just funny, all these little things you notice that you change.
Oh my gosh, like so many things too. And like one thing that I'd like to touch on as well is like we weren't like broke or poor by any means. I don't want to give that impression, but I think because of all of the toxicity and the things that you're like, there was a lot of, I don't know what you call it, like misallocating funds or something like that. I mean, I didn't have money for like I started working when I was 15 and a half, and I thought that I could help, or I could, you know, just even have stuff for me and my sister, like food or whatever that might be. And I think I do have a lot of resentment for those things. I'm glad that I am this person now. I am. But I kind of resent, like, you know, them being so messed up that they couldn't help me get to where all these other people around me were getting. Like I had to figure out college on my own and all of those things when I feel like other people have more help. So I am grateful though that I was able to kind of teach myself everything, but I, you know, sometimes wish that there were people and adults in my life that were clear-minded enough to help me, you know? So.
I know. Sometimes it's like, I had to figure out a lot too, and I think it makes us who we are, and we worked so hard and we get a lot done and we're inventive, and I mean, you wouldn't trade it, but then yes, you have a lot of, whether it's resentment, jealousy of people that had more opportunities or different things awarded to them, given to them.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to admit it, but I was very jealous of a lot of people, like especially like as a young girl, like going over to somebody's house and their mom being like, and I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like I can never have these people over at my house. Like they would just be like, what in the chaos is this? Like, it just, you know, I was jealous of people. And it was also hard too, because I didn't want a lot of people to know, you know, what was going on. Because I didn't want them to judge me, or more importantly, I didn't want them to think like badly of my mom, because I know how good of a person she was. She was just in a bad place. And I didn't want people to, you know, talk badly about my mom. And so I rarely had any friends that understood having like an addict in their family. So that was hard too, because I could really only talk to my sister, but I also didn't want to unleash all of my feelings on her when some of them might have not been the same, you know? So
when we talk in part 2, we'll talk more about like more recently what happened in May and on. But before that, as a child, as a teenager, what would you say, because there could be someone listening right now that is worried for their mom, worried for their dad, whoever it might be. What would you say you would transport into that person to give them strength or to reassure them of something?
You know, that's really hard. And maybe you can even help me too, because I feel like it all happened so fast, like there to now. Like I tried, and keep in mind, I'm a young kid and I don't have adults that I can really go to that will even let me, you know, like everyone was trying to keep it a secret, or everyone was just like, oh, she's fine, you know? So I feel like if there's somebody out there that you can reach out to that, you know, has the means to help, because as a young kid, I couldn't do anything and nobody around me wanted to help. Like, I feel like there has to be somebody that you can reach out to, right? But I feel like also a big part of it is kind of knowing like, you're a kid, these are the adults, these are adult things, you know, it's not all your fault.
It's not any of your fault. And you know what's funny is that's something reoccurring. I'm glad you're saying that right now. Reoccurring that you said, like, I tried everything. I tried my hardest or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, there's just nothing, you know, and I say this to you because I'm on the other side of the coin, you know, but there's just nothing you could have done, you know, or nothing you could do. Like, people are going to change if they want to change. And it's not even, you know, just a wanting thing. Addiction is so complex and there's so many variables at play that I truly believe it's so much of it's like timing. It's almost like you have to have a perfect storm sometimes for someone to get sober. And I just think of like all the things that my kids went through.
Yeah.
And it's like, I look back at pictures of them at certain ages and I think, how could I be so blind or so consumed by my own disease that I just looked through them in some ways. So that's my greatest sadness for you, is that I know that if even now it's still the same, it's very hard for you to let go of blaming yourself. And we'll talk more about that. But I agree. I think you telling other people that went through what you went through that they don't have to blame themselves, because there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, and it's not all on you, you know. Because that's what I just feel like I just took it all on me. Like, I have to fix this. I have to help. Did I do something, you know? And that's even a weird thought to have. Like, did I do something to make my mom want to drink all the time? Like, am I annoying? Like, is she trying to escape me?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's weird, but, you know, for years I went through all the emotions.
Yeah. What would you say was your lowest point as a child or going through that, or teenager? Like the worst, was it that time you said when she did that?
I mean, that definitely sticks out, just because I thought like, this is it. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I mean, I would say that's probably it. But I mean, the thing is that every day was kind of a low point, to be honest, because I just never knew what I was going to get. I had to figure like what I was going to get out of her, you know, like what mood she was going to, I would just kind of wake up like scared, like what's today going to be like, you know, like how's it going to be here? Like, am I going to lose her? You know, I would say it was all like very low. I was very depressed for a long time, but that's definitely the lowest point for me was that day, you know, especially because it wasn't even just me that went through it. There was other people there, and it was like coming out, and I was like scared, like everybody's going to find out about this, you know?
And did people kind of find out? And were people nice about it, or?
I mean, I don't think anybody was mean.
That's good.
But I definitely lost friends. Like, I had a core group of friends, and I think that they slowly started to, like, you know, apparently there was like other reasons, but if I had to guess, you know, no one wanted to come over to my house anymore, or like, you know. So I think I definitely like lost friends, but I didn't say anybody was mean. But I think that's something that's really hard for me also, is like, you know, I wasn't doing those things. Like, you know, why are you mad? I can't control what my, you know, family does.
So, and then later, you know, before we get into the other stuff, you ended up trying to get out of that house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That.
So, I mean, it was always a thought in my head. Like, I was like, oh, everybody goes off to college. Like, I'm going to be in a dorm. Like, when I found out that that wasn't financially possible for me, I was like, okay, well, I need to get into a place where I'm financially able to just go on my own and just leave. And, you know, I ended up telling my sister, like, I want to save up money, and when I graduate, I want to leave here. And she was like, take me with you. And then after that moment, like, I can't imagine not having her with me, because I wouldn't want, you know, to be out on my own and living my own life and not giving that to her too. So honestly, like, when I did leave that house, what was it? Like 2 years ago or a year ago or something? I don't know.
Like a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half ago. It was just, you know, it was so great. Like, I had saved up all this money. I got all my own furniture. I had all my own things everywhere, and there was just no chaos, and it was peaceful. It was peaceful, and it was clean, and it was just, I learned a lot about myself, and I had my own life, and I wasn't always worrying about everybody else. So I think that was good, but, you know, we'll talk about, like, you know, there does come some guilt with that, but I think that it was probably the best choice for me. I definitely like grew as a person being on my own.
I was just kind of smiling a little bit, because I was thinking the other day how you said we're always trying to get somewhere or do something or leave somewhere. But I mean, it's part of life and it's part of the
Yeah.
journey. And I'm glad that you were able to at least, free up a little bit of that mind and that space.
It helped for sure.
Before we part ways for this first part of your episode, Taylor, what would you want to tell people that you do now? And we'll touch on this again in the next episode, but what would you, maybe we'll leave it like this. Why don't you tell them a little bit of what you did as like daily practices when you first kind of blossomed into that new space? Like you said, you got your furniture, you did your things, but what was super important about you in creating that space?
I think like a couple things. Like I think having a routine, and if you do have like an addict in your family, more so like your parent, like like you were saying earlier, like it's messy, it's chaotic, it's not organized, there's no food, there's just it's all chaotic. Like that was something that was really important for me, for everything to be clean, have food, have a place, not be worried about things, and then just have a routine, and also kind of like taking my energy out elsewhere, which for me was working, and working for you. Like you have no idea. I mean, I know I've told you before, but the day that I met you and like that all started happening was really like a change for me. Like I felt like, oh my gosh, like I can put all my energy into this and distract myself and really excel at something and not feel like I'm just at home failing to try to get somebody to stop drinking, So I think it was a lot of things. It was the routine, the organization of things, and then having an outlet to pour my energy into. And honestly, like I haven't really stopped those things since, so.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Taylor, thank you for sharing the beginning part of your story with us. And if anyone wants to find you, follow you, tell us.
Yeah. Well, I have, Instagram at Taylor Faye Wood or Taylor at the Hills. And that's kind of mainly where I'm at. It's kind of my personal life versus my business life. And then they come together. But,
and you're a singer.
Oh yeah.
So she's a singer, and I think maybe we'll have to splice in a couple songs or
that
something.
Would be cool.
Or like
Apple Music and Spotify. If you just look up Taylor Wood, you should be able to find me. I was really young, but another thing is you can kind of see, me, or at least maybe hear in the songs, me trying to have an outlet, and I was trying to pour my heart into something, and music has always been that for me. But I was like 15 at the time that music came out, and it was me trying to really like find something to make
find
me
your
happy.
voice in a way. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Abuse Recovery Success. I would say that Taylor Wood is probably the brightest shining light that I have met in a long, long time, and I'm glad you got to share a little bit of your story and light with our other bright lights. Guys, if you want to find me, you can find me at April_the Hills on both Instagram and TikTok, and then you can find more YouTube episodes at April Hill on YouTube, and then abuserecoverysuccess.com has all of our episodes if you ever want to catch up and find out more about our story, or even look for Taylor's previous episode with me where we talk a lot about our beauty empire. Thank you, guys.